I didn't want to click end broadcast right as you were clicking start broadcast, and then have it like our show would be
That's
32
hilarious,
seconds
yo.
long.
You sound like somebody. There was a serious surprise that just happened.
Oh,
Yo, welcome to the Beat People podcast, episode 64. We up in here. We got Philip drumming. We got Ken. We got myself, B Boy Tech. What up, fellas?
where'd Daniel Steele at? Get him on.
Yeah, I don't
He's
know.
hiding somewhere. He's
I hit
hiding
him
somewhere.
up.
He's
He's
making his
spending all
eighth
his
flip.
time
He busy
crafting.
flipping for the night. He busy over there.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's making
He's
his
he's
eighth
getting
flip.
every second that he can to just like murder me.
You know, the other thing that you got to know about D Still is he's fiercely competitive, yo.
Yep.
I can't
Don't
tell.
matter. It don't matter. It don't matter how much he love you. He's fierce. He's like a fierce competitor. He
no
like,
fucking
I love you, but you
around.
gotta die tonight. That's what his mind is.
Good, because that's hip hop.
That's right. That's right.
Elliot, you got to turn up just a little bit more.
Check 1, 2. I turn up. I turn up. I show up. I turn up.
Yeah.
I turn up a beat. Turn up the beat. Turn up the beat.
So how's everybody been managing COVID? Y'all staying healthy?
Yeah, I think so. I've been walking 2 hours a day.
You don't manage COVID. COVID manages you.
Good point. Good point, man. So I'm gonna be doing I'm gonna do a video hopefully this weekend if I get some time. I'm gonna preview it here, but this thing has been dope. So obviously, as we talked about before, I'm on the Akai Force now, and it's not battery powered. So I went out and I found a battery that will work for it and give me 5 hours of battery time. So I can just, and because I have a 500 gig SSD inside of it, I have 153 gigs of my sample libraries in it. And then, for instance, we're going to be doing the sample flip tonight for Global Beat Cypher.
Hey.
I threw the entire thing into my Force.
That's
So
tight.
and that's a 23-minute sample.
That's like 300 megs, huh?
It is not small because I duplicated it to a whole bunch of pads and my RAM went. But yeah, I threw that thing in there and I can chop it up. I can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and yeah, it's absurd. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a video on this. I've done the raw testing on it to prove exactly how long, how much time you'll get out of it on average and everything. I did the legwork so that you don't have to. So I'll be doing a video on that soon. It's pretty dope. I like battery powered stuff even when it's not practical.
They got it on my
Because-
volts or no?
What's that?
They got it on my volts.
On what?
My volts. That's the place where you can get the push to little power thing. That,
Oh
we
no,
plug in
this
the
is
USB.
straight off of Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
How much was it for
it's-
the battery?
Yeah, it's $89.
Not bad.
Yeah, so and
Ken's
you
the
get
only
5
person
hours
who
out of it.
wants to go mobile with an 80-pound drum machine.
Yeah, it's huge. It's definitely not. I sent Corey pictures the other day of me sitting in my car with it, and
Hell yeah.
and it's not at all portable. I had the Live before that, and I used to do the same thing with the Live, and it's not at all portable considering its size to be sitting in the driver's seat with it at least.
You need a Suburban.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
need.
no doubt.
Yeah, you
We
you
did
need to
that.
sit in the back seat with
Plug
that
it in the
thing.
aux, bro. Just get Corey to drive or get your wife to drive and just bang out. You know?
Yeah, I was known for doing that with my MPC 2000 XL and a power inverter. I used to plug
Yup.
it straight into my car and just drive down the
Yup.
street making beats.
There you go.
Horrible. But yeah, man, it's dope though because having the hard drive built into it lets you just you can just throw so many. You could throw
Yeah, it's unlimited,
Sample your
almost.
entire vinyl collection into this thing and then just take it with you. You know what I mean? So I can be sitting on the couch, just tapping away, annoying the hell out of my wife, and that's priceless.
The next step though is getting the some kind of plastic or vinyl cover over, like a transparent thing that you could still play it, so you could play it protected in the world.
That's dope.
Yeah. I'm definitely getting a different fader for it. The first thing that I really want to get, I already ordered the fader from DJ Tech Tools. I'm getting a neon green one because that's the only color I could use.
That's right.
So the other thing that I need is a matte anti-glare screen protector for it because my overhead lights up here, I just get absurd amount of glare from them. So it's really annoying. Like when I turn the lights up, it gets pretty bright in there, but I'll turn it back down. So I got auto exposure on. So you guys probably don't notice too much. But anyway, yeah, that's the main thing about it that I need is anti-glare protection, because if you're gonna take the thing outside anywhere, it's like the screen is. I mean, the screen's pretty bright for what it is, but if you're out in the daylight, if you rock any kind of venues that are daylight, outside, then that's not going to be great for that.
Same with the push too. That's why I got the MyVolts joint, the little like power USB to power like adapter thing.
Yeah. I got you.
You can't even see it. Like you can barely see it in daylight. Like if you have that shit on, and it's like it's a sunny day.
Yeah. These types of screens are just not like. You could make a hood, like if you're really doing venues outside a lot, you could certainly make a hood, but it's just, they're not really designed for that,
Yeah.
So what's good with you, man? You just been grinding away. I know you were up all kinds of hours trying to get the sample ready for the Global Beat Cipher.
Dude, I was anxious.
To speak of that thing though, Elliot,
Yo,
you put in a lot of work on the Global Beat Cipher, yo. I mean, that's a ton of. It's like a festival every week.
It is
basically,
bro.
It's like a virtual festival every week.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is, and that's just kind of the stupid stuff that I do that takes away from all the quote unquote real work that I need to do that I have kind of been neglecting, including my email overflow.
No doubt.
But listen, I think it's worth it, bro. Even from like the first one or the second one, there was this cat that was like, yo, this is my first time, but I can already tell you I'm looking forward to this every week. And for me, it's the same thing. But I'm like, what's gonna happen on this? Like, I realized it was a show a week or two ago when I said it by accident. And I was like, because it was a live stream, it was a Global Beat Cipher live stream. But I was like, oh, this is a show, isn't it? And the format started to develop. So we have the Spotlight Showcase. We have you guys as the Spotlight feature. And then I was like, well, I got to make them flip some of the samples. Like that's a requisite if you're coming on, and it's a tremendous amount of work. And I get stuck in getting hella obsessed. Like, because I know thousands of beat makers and they're all ill. So I'm like, oh, well, I got to hit this person up and I got the link on my phone. And then I spend hours upon hours messaging people on IG. And, I went back and hit up the thread I had with Tall Black Guy, a little while ago. I was telling him about today's future sound. He's like, oh, that's super dope. And I said, come to the beat battle. So I hit him up and I tried to see if I could get him the sample pack and just get hella not random, but get hella people in here, So it's a tremendous amount of work, but the payback is tremendous. I can tell for me and for everyone else how much fun it is and how important it is to have like a virtual space where we can all gather, come together across the world, listen to some dope ass music, and then listen to how people flipped it. So to me, I'm not hoarding my samples anymore. Stuff that I would have hoarded and kept for myself in my secret little bank, my like store of gigabytes of dope ass samples on the hip hop competitive steez I'm throwing out there. And I mean, dude, I barely have time to make my flips myself. Last night I was up late with some cats I found on Instagram, just on the Zoom, like working on my flip. But damn. Listen, DSTL, just watched his Instagram live of him flipping like 3 of the different samples, and it was stupid. It's really
that's what's up.
Really, really humbling, and that shit was crazy. So I screen recorded the last one he did, and I'm gonna post that on IGTV on the Today's Future Sound or the Philip Drummond IGTV, and probably I'm
just gonna beat jacket.
There you go. There you go.
It looks like when you play that
one,
put my
I'm
name on
to
it.
Play my beat before him, so that when he comes on, everybody's like, "Oh, so you're Beat Jack and Flux, really?"
Dude, he's like, "Yo, I extracted the drums from this, and then I took this little micro chop, and then I transformed it into," and then he starts singing on it and playing chord structures on it, and it completely is like a complete flip. And then he did what this cat Van Desla did 2 weeks ago, where he took a Spanish song and made the Spanish song say "Face of a Born Killer," and then it's like transmuting from another language and turning the sounds into a different. So Daniel did that, and I was just like, oh no, this shit is crazy.
That's what's up. That's how D gets down, yo. I mean, and the thing is because D has a rare sort of combination of things.
Classical training and the mind of a producer, the mind of Jay Dilla, or like the mind of a sample flip cat. He's
a straight up beat maker, sample flipper, but he's got classical training, and he pulls from all of that. You know what I mean? And he's not stagnant in any one genre. So when he comes and makes hip hop, it's like he's pulling from all of that, but not overdoing it. That's the thing, too.
That's why he reminds me of my boy Chris Keys that I was telling you about, who just produced Quelle Chris's last album, because he's trained as a jazz pianist, but he studied and fell in love with Dilla and boom bap hip hop and sample digging. And he knows how to flip it and not overdo it, because there's also science to not overdoing and overproducing.
Certainly.
Keeping it funky and keeping it simple. But then Daniel's doing all these, like, because I've seen how he plays keys, right? And Chris Keys is like one of the dopest piano players I've ever seen, but he makes boom bap sampled shit and he samples vinyl. And I saw Daniel doing that, and I recognized that is a rare, you're right, it's a rare combination of having either the innate, the classical training and the innate ability to like understand chord structure and how to create that melody and melodic progression, the chord progression, and also take, as he says, those textures, the timbres of the sample, and the little, like the DJ Premier thing of taking the air in between, right? Or the Dilla thing of taking the kind of the end of that release of the hit. And my push does this with auto chopping on the transient sometimes, and you hit it and you add a little like reverb or delay on it, and then suddenly you got a dope little like timbre, but also the melodic part, but also like the rhythmic shit.
That's a technique that like I think a lot of people use just to kind of fill out a track, because otherwise you get this blank space. It's kind of like if you're doing Foley or something for a show, right? And like a cartoon or something where there is no background sound, right? So like if you just didn't lay that bed down there, it would feel awkward, it would feel choppy, it would feel weird. So you have to lay some kind of sound noise bed below something. And if you don't do that kind of stuff, this is what, so off air, we were all having a conversation earlier about I'm not going to name names or anything. I don't want to blow anybody's spot up. But we were having a discussion about the difference between what can be taught and what you just need to have in your soul, right? And what is something that is part of a proper beat maker. And we were having the discussion as to whether or not you can teach this sort of thing. And it's one of those things where you have to tune your ears to listen to, you know, the vibe of something, and you have to have that in you to where you can say like, okay, if I lay this down, you have to be able to notice with your ears. It's not necessarily about musical training or anything. You have to be able to listen to, does this sound correct or not, and what is it missing, and be able to identify those kinds of things. And a lot of the times,
totally right.
Air and emptiness is not always actually emptiness. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes that emptiness is something that needs to be focused on, you know?
The negative space, right?
Yeah.
It's a decision, and that's interesting. I was talking with someone else about that. It's a decision-making process that also is intuitive about negative space, not overdoing, understanding swing and groove and funk and syncopation in combination with melody and harmony and just like the overall big picture of the track. And those small moments. And when I was talking with some homies last night on the chat about Tall Black Guy, and was it the Dayloft flip, or what was the where he does the insane micro-chopping and does the 3/4 time flip, and it's crazy. Like the
I haven't heard it. I probably heard it and didn't realize what it was.
It's crazy. It's almost like, yeah, that's one of the craziest flips I've ever heard in my life. One of my favorite ever. And that, yeah. So to me, it's beautiful to see someone doing that real time, like to see Daniel doing that real time, and then to see him, and then he starts fucking singing hooks and rapping hooks. He like came up with like a Freddie Gibbs hook for one of these. Like, this sounds like a Mad Lib beat, and I could hear what he's talking about, and it was, yeah, man. And then he starts singing hooks. He starts doing sung hooks, and I'm thinking, dog, you gotta like put that on your voice recorder or something, because that's a fire hook. Like, and he's like, he was, when I woke up this morning and turned on his IG live, right, like rolled out of bed, or not even rolled out of bed, was in bed and looked at, and he's singing a fucking hook. He's got like a hook for his beat.
Yeah, that's the way you get down.
Yeah, that's
like
we're
on Marco Polo all day, every day, and that's literally what you're explaining is what we see him do like all day long. Like, he'll have conversations with us singing it like a hook. Like, it'll be crazy. The dude is a nut. No, but I wanted to bring this up though, just because for those, you know, typically if you watch the show, you see D still here with us. But because I respect him as an artist and always fascinated with his art, I did this new Beat Boy Tech artist interview series. And so I interviewed 80s Baby, was a Tall Black Guy. Rashid Hadi, and I also interviewed. Well, last night I interviewed Thavius Beck, and the first one though was D Still, and so if you want to kind of get into the mind of how he gets down, check
Yes,
out
please.
this interview on bboytechreport.com. And if you scroll down in that, I say a little something about it, but then you can watch it there too. So yeah, definitely check it out. He's got a lot of gems.
That's fresh. And shouts to Beats by Rossi. He said he used to fucking bump into me on the corner and like hear my beat slap, and that's hella funny.
Yeah, y'all used to live around the corner from each other. That's wild.
Shit, in Berkeley. Well, I live on the border of Berkeley and Oakland, so I don't know if he's talking about my new spot or the old spot.
I think he's talking about the old one.
Yeah, I'm back on Sacramento Street back in the day. That was crazy. I was in a Wikipedia page because they had these German exchange students that would always come from the same like tech university, and they made a fucking wiki page for all the other ones that would come over. They would all stay in the same house. So I literally shared a wall with these fools, and they'd be like, Elliot is a DJ and producer that puts on beat events and likes to take you to get the new ice cream.
Well, who doesn't like to get some new ice cream? Come
Bro,
on,
I'm stupid on the show last time. I think on the Global Beat Cypher last time, I at least had 2 to 3 servings of ice cream during the duration of the show.
Yeah,
I already have a bad enough habit with the bourbon during podcasts. I don't need to be going. I'll be fat as hell in no time.
I've been walking 2 hours a day though, man. I've been like to just get that exercise and keep saying.
That's good, man.
Yeah,
it's good. I've been sitting on my ass like 75 hours a day.
No, you should.
You know what I did today? My car needed to be started, so I got in it and I drove around the block, and then I came back.
I need to do that.
And that's the exercise that I got.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. That's a good 4.5 steps.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's probably like 37 steps, right?
37 steps at the most. Yeah.
I've been hitting 15,000, 20,000, sometimes 25,000 if I do a walk in the morning and a walk at nighttime. And I'll just be on the phone talking to people or listening to beats or watching IG Live, looking for some flips.
That's what's up, man. So what's your machine of choice, man?
Oh, look, I swear by it.
Oh, you probably mentioned it last time you were on.
I did, but Ken and I were having a friendly disagreement. I told him, look,
that's Ableton, the conversation with Ken in general.
Ableton Push 2 all day. I don't care what anyone says. The simpler is like how the Fruity Slicer was in FL Studio, but on steroids.
I don't listen to clarify one.
Okay.
Are you talking about from last show?
Yeah, well, in our conversation about the machine.
Okay, well, just to clarify, for one, I barely remember last show. That's you guys' fault. I take zero responsibility for my own alcohol intake.
Okay.
And two, again, to me, it all comes down to if somebody comes from a FL background versus somebody who comes from an MPC background, they're going to be coming at things from very polar opposite directions. But what's cool is that now the software is kind of meeting everyone in the middle. So now everything is kind of okay, this is the best of this school of thought, this is the best of this school of thought, and you're having all these hardware controllers and everything. Hardware controllers and standalone units are starting to grab from both angles, and now you're getting this mishmash of both. I was having a conversation with Upright today. We have a Marco Polo group that's just dedicated to Force users, and we share tips and talk about stuff on there. Mm-hmm. He's a big Push user as well, and I was telling him so I got mine right here. So I'm sitting here and we're discussing.
It's a beautiful piece, man.
It is. The hardware of this is easily the best best designed hardware controller.
It's probably the cats that live next door to me. They were at the
Well, I know who designed this. This is Jesse Terry. So.
Right, that's who you were saying last time. Yeah.
So,
and he was involved in the Push 1 as well?
A bit, but not I don't know how involved he was on that one, but this is all Jesse right here.
You can tell that they were MPC users who helped design it.
Yeah, and Jesse is Jesse's a very active muso, so he's definitely he gets down.
You said muso, that's an Australian beats. English term.
Yeah, he gets it. Well, living on the internet,
Yeah.
all of our slangs get mixed together now.
No, hey, that's
Which is
real.
beautiful.
Hey, tell Jesse if you can, tell him to jump on the cipher or jump in the Zoom or get on the live feed
I'll
tonight.
let him know. He's in Germany, so his
It's
time
gonna be 3 or
schedule
4
will be
a.m. I
very
know.
goofy for
I
that.
know.
Because what 10 o'clock Pacific time is like.
Pacific.
It's
no,
like 4 or 5 a.m.
no,
for them.
It's 10 o'clock Eastern
That's not
time,
too
7
early.
PST, but that's like
That's
3
too late.
That's 3. Yeah, it's 3 a.m. In Germany or 4
So
a.m.
yeah. Anyway, but what I was saying though is that so like we were having a conversation because Upright comes from the push side of things and more than anything, and I'm coming from MPC/machine side of things, and I was talking to him about how like the Force is kind of like machine. It's kind of like Ableton Live training wheels. Because it's like for MPC users, because it's like
Yeah.
it gives you a taste of the Ableton workflow, which is also partially a taste of machine workflow as well, like
Right,
the
with
way
the clip
that
launching
scenes
and
work
stuff.
and everything. And it's like, but it's simplified down, and you still have structure and sampling the way that the MPC is done. So it's kind of like training wheels for that. So that because let's face it, Ableton is very jarring compared, graphically speaking, and the way that everything is laid
Yeah.
out. The way it's so polar different.
It looks like a 90s
what
tracker.
hardware is.
It's the GUI on Ableton. I hated it coming from FL Studio. Like it's not visually pleasing, and it looks simple and weird, and it's non-linear in clip mode. So then you're like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like I didn't even know how to like
Yeah.
FL Studio. You're like, oh, there it is. It's a step sequencer. It's like an 808, or it's like, and I mean, it took me this literally 2 years to figure out what the 16th notes were and where the 1, 2, and 3 and 4 were, like when I first started out on FL Studio. But it's like it's visually, it makes enough sense and it's visually intuitive enough versus Ableton. You're like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Unless you figure out how to click in the clip or whatever.
Yeah, that's like that whole method of clip sequencing and all that stuff. It's interesting because Machine kind of jacked it from Ableton, but simplified it.
And the scale mode too, right? Like the because that was something where Machine had to keep up with the push with the scale mode, and then and also probably the clip launching, right?
Yeah, but the thing where Machine kind of wins for me is just the speed of sampling, chopping, and sketching ideas.
How is that? Because I drop the sample pack or I drop an MP3 in my sampler and boom, I got it right away. It's like Fruity Slicer in that way.
Well, it's things like normalize and a lot of the editing functionality is just very quick and hands on with.
What
Machine.
about the nudge feature? Because you have the without touching the computer, I can do the start, endpoint, and the nudge.
Yeah, you can do all
for every
that.
chop.
That's all. That's you literally with Machine, you don't have to touch the computer at all. Period. And which is great. However, all this being said, I've kind of stopped and I used to teach classes on Machine. I kind of stopped using it because I feel like they have really lost their mind and way. Like the way that they're developing it now feels very designed by committee. It feels very sloppy. Like it went from being a very focused
they'd have
thing.
to do, Ken, to get back on track?
What's that?
What do you think they'd have to do to get back on track?
Oh God, they got to scrap a bunch of stuff and start over. And I'm not even kidding. Like I can't stand the way that they developed the audio tracks in it. Like that, it could have just been a very straightforward thing, and they convoluted it, and the whole ideas view and all that stuff. Like I just wasn't on board with any of that stuff. There's so many fundamental things that still need to be fixed, and they had said they were going to fix so many times that I've become disillusioned about. Like the fact that you can't record aftertouch at all. Like no aftertouch. You've got VSTs and stuff that you can load it, no aftertouch. And it's like this is stuff that they said back in 1.8 days. They were like, oh yeah, well this is what we're developing 2.0 for because we have to change the engine in order to do that and blah blah blah. And then it's like, if for those of you who don't remember, like there was a big mass exodus of like developers and stuff back then, and then it happened again recently. Like recently, they
Whoopsies.
laid off a whole bunch of guys, like a whole team, and and then they've released like apology letters saying, hey, we got off track and all, and then they released an apology letter like a while ago. They released an apology letter, and then they said they were getting back on track, and then they had to release another apology letter like a year or two later.
They're like,
saying
we fired
that,
him
we're still not on track. Is that basically what it? And we're sorry.
And like, for instance, Joe says he likes Ideas View and the audio looper, and to me, I look at it like, so the audio tracks versus the looping versus the Idea View. To me, it all just feels like it's not all always part of the same product, and a lot of the loopings, like sync sampling is great. Sync sampling on machine is fantastic, and I like it more than just about any other workflow, aside from just being able to record directly into clips like you can.
Wait, is sync sampling, is that like warping in Ableton?
No, sync sampling is you can basically start your sampling and end your sampling within the loop, right? So it automatically, so if you're playing something out here and I hit sync sampling start, and then I'm messing around out here, it will make a perfect loop of it, right? Which is essentially what doing clips is in Ableton. It's much faster in Ableton and much faster in Force to do that kind of stuff now.
Dude, the warping feature is insane in Ableton, because I had one of the samples from the sample pack last week or the week before, and it was like probably like an 8-bar loop that shouldn't have like locked in. But it did on top of the other stuff I'd done, and I'm like, and it's coming from the simpler or whatever, and I'm like, damn, this is locked in already. This is kind of crazy, and that's exactly what I wanted. So to me, that's dope. And to me, look, I hated Ableton until the push. When Decap showed me the push, he's like, yo, you got to check this out. I pre-ordered this. And he's like, you got to use this with the kids. Like when you're teaching kids, it transforms Ableton from like a pretty steep learning curve to an extremely fast, because it has the step sequencer that Fruity Loops has, right? In the step sequencer, you can bang out your drums super quick, get 16th notes, and you can get a really good drum programming going on. And then with the ability to, what you're talking about, editing samples, especially with the Push 2 with the high res screen, you can then adjust your chop. You can do pad chopping, where the sample plays, you trigger it on the one, and then you can hit the slices right away, and then you can move those slices with the nudge feature. To me, that's really fast. Now, I only gave Machine like a 1-day preview on the Mark II, and then I said, fuck this, I'm over it, because it's so fast on the Push. Like I can literally program a drum beat in 4 seconds. I slide my finger down, in 16th note, I slide my finger down the first column. I got my kicks on the 1s and the 3s. I slide my finger down the 5th column. I got my snares on the 2s and the 4s. I take 2 fingers and do 8th note hi-hats. Shoop, shoop, shoop. I mean, and I've done this literally hundreds, if not thousands of times, like demoing, teaching kids and doing here's how you make beats thing, right? Then I flip over into my, the melodic harmonic instrument. I hit, a tri, like a three key chord, a trichord or whatever, and then boom, boom, boom. And then it's just shapes on there. And you can technically do that with the machine now, but like having the way it's set up with 64 pads, it gives you a lot more options melodically, harmonically to play those chords, unless you're using like the chord feature or some auto chord feature right on machine. That's my argument. I'm not a machine user, but I just know, like, I went from swearing by FL Studio in the Fruity Slicer and all that to, I still use FL Studio, but to Ableton Push. That transformed Ableton for me. I hated Ableton until then. Didn't understand it.
And that was the target, though, if you think about it, right? Like the idea behind Push, I'm sure the target was like to bring people into Ableton with a tactile workflow. And if I remember, I think I heard some people who were initially there developing the thing say that there were some other people that ended up benefited from it from a company perspective or whatever, that didn't necessarily believe in the Push or didn't necessarily think it would sell much. And nowadays, you know what I mean? You kind of think of it as like, you think Push first. Yeah. Almost, you know what I mean?
Industry standard.
Yeah.
But that's where we get to that whole, like, the hardware versus software debate kind of falls away, and it just becomes like, okay, well, what's the best way to interact with your music? And for many of us, I do know people who legit have had hands-on with Push and Machine and everything else, and they still like they don't even use MIDI keyboards. They like to just click into a piano roll and stuff like that.
I used to
I
do
know
that
people
too.
like that.
Yeah,
So
and you can be hella fast like that, especially
yeah,
in FL
that's
Studio
like
with
the
step
furthest thing
sequencing.
from my life. Like I'm like I so don't enjoy that, but I think what a lot of the companies have realized and the processing ability in an affordable way is also a major factor in that, is that now people are able to interact with their software in a way that feels like hardware, and that's that's beautiful. So for me it's a massive massive change, and it really started with Machine, like, and then and even when you talk about units that were hardware that were looking the opposite direction, like BeatThang was hardware, but it could work with the software.
So real quick, just jump in here. So my buddy helped design the beat thing, and I guess
yeah, I'm friends with those guys too. Yeah.
do you know Asterix?
I know Lazarus, and
Yeah. So and I think the beat thing catches a lot of hate. It's pretty dope for what it is.
I stand by the fact that it's
I
groundbreaking.
feel
for
like
what it is.
BeatBang caught hate because of some of the
Their marketing.
shenanigans.
Yeah,
And
their
you know what I mean? It
marketing
wasn't. I
material.
really
Wasn't RZA
don't
with
think.
it? RZA was part of the promo thing for the beat
What's
thing.
that?
Yeah, but I felt like it was more towards the end. You know what I mean?
Dude, a lot of people don't realize how dope BeatThang was,
It's
like,
so dope.
and the ground that it broke,
How
and they
much is
also
it,
don't realize
500?
the fact that it was independently built. Like,
Yeah.
I
this is not a
supported
big
them
company
though. I
that
did
did
support
this.
them because I thought that it was a really dope movement for those three guys to get together and do this thing, and it's still unprecedented. And I think what a lot of companies out there don't say and will never admit to is that it was kind of the prototype, so to speak, for some of the machines that we use now.
Yeah.
You
They
know
were
what I mean?
forward thinking in a lot of other ways too. They had other things that they unfortunately never got to release.
And the
that
kits were dope in
extremely
it.
forward thinking even for today.
The
Like,
the kits in it were dope too. No.
They did a lot of sound design that was really dope.
yeah. So it's
But
just
this here's what I think. What a lot of people thought, it was ugly and the marketing was trash. Like
That's
that,
our point.
was absolutely
that doesn't
trash.
take
The
away
marketing was
from,
trash.
because I truly support what they did. I do truly support what they did. But if I had to think of in a almost a postpartum project fashion, so you can look at postmortem sort of project management fashion. I would have to look at it and be like, yeah, the marketing and or this thing or that thing. But ultimately, I think it had its dope things about it. And you know what? I never owned one until Joe put one in my hand. I was like, yo,
it's
this
solid.
ain't
Man.
bad.
It's actually solid, yeah. Like,
Yo,
and the
so
thing
here's-
is that it was it was one of those things where like there's a lot of good things to learn from that project and negative things to learn from that project, like both sides. Because again, you're talking about an independent crew who was able to basically do what Akai wasn't able to do at the time. You know,
And we're
they did
willing
it
to
with
do
one
too.
programmer.
Was
you
it
know what I
battery
mean?
powered?
Yes.
Yeah, it was battery powered. Had a LiPo battery in it. You could take it. You could play keys on it. You could, man, it could do so much.
But it had
like,
two USB
color
backup
screen,
before
like-
anything else did.
Did it? And it had scale mode.
I don't recall if it had scale mode. I'll let Joe answer that. Joe literally has, I think, number
He still
0 off the line.
Yeah, he still
Like
has it.
he has, like St. Joe's got literally the very first one that was produced.
So I want to know how much did it was the price point like 500, and how much does it go for now?
Oh no, it was more than that. When it first dropped, it
750?
was like 1,000, I think.
Okay. Well,
And then it dropped. It
People are
eventually
selling
dropped down to
these
like
things. I gotta go
$6.99, I
see
think.
towards the end, you could get it for like maybe 500 or 350 at like Walmart or something like that, right?
Well, they had a deal
Best
with
Buy.
they had a deal with Best Buy,
yeah. Look, yeah, my
which is also another groundbreaking thing. The fact that they were able to get a beat machine, a proper beat machine into Best
yeah,
Buy,
yeah.
that's huge.
That is huge. That's groundbreaking. And my boy Jay Kripnip, who works for Roland now,
Yeah, I know
was like-
Jay.
Yeah,
Jay's a good
Jay's a
friend.
good dude.
That's my dude. He was looking for one. Like it was probably about a year ago, but I mean, you know Jay, like he just wants every fucking beat machine ever. But,
Jay's like us, so.
yeah.
But yeah, that thing was it can get all the hate it wants, but you know what? The people who don't recognize what it did,
Hey, send it on over to me, bro. I'll take it. Just send it over.
those things
We can do it
are
with the kids.
those things were groundbreaking, and like I said, their team like their mentality was extremely forward thinking. I saw prototypes that they had that were doing things that today gear isn't doing. So, you know, like they were on the right track. They just had a lot of, you know, behind the scenes issues, and you know that's what happens. I agree that there were things that I didn't like that kind of stemmed from their culture and mentality. Like I wasn't about like the slang stuff on it. I don't like that. And I didn't like the blinging it out thing. But
it does look pretty cool though.
But at the same time, the blinging it out thing, like I'm not mad at, because I'm also like, you know what? For one, that's like style flip and all that stuff. That's, you know, look at people's SP404s and tell me that you're not blinging those out.
It looks like an ASR.
You're doing the same thing, except it was a different style back then.
It looks like an ASR to me, the pads.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was like an ASR layout, and if you look on the side, it had pitch and mod wheel on the side, or maybe it was was it just one wheel? I can't remember. But anyway,
joystick controller.
Yeah, it had like a wheel on the side, so you could actually play keys on the little pads like that, and is super compact for what it is.
That's airplane beats right there, bro. That's making it on the train.
It is. It certainly is.
Matter of fact, my buddy my buddy Rod had one, and at the time he had a long commute on the train every day to work.
Straight up.
He would bring his beat thing to work every day. And
forget your SP404, man. Use this shit.
Yeah. Yep.
I wonder how people modded this. How do you think people modded this? Like folks like you.
What's that?
How do you think people modified this? Like, I wonder what kind of crazy mods people did on this as well.
Well, there was originally going to be like, they literally called it blinging it out, and it had like different front panels that you could get. Like, you see how there's blue LED cuts in there? Yeah. Like, you could get it chromed out, and you know, different things like that.
It's cheesy and it's cool. I'm not gonna front.
Exactly. It's like, you know, if that's what you want, that's what you want. But a lot of people nowadays kind of like bang on them about it, and I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Nobody had done that before, and people were modifying their gear all the time anyway. Rich says he thinks it's overpriced, and it's like, really? MPC 1000 was around the same price and couldn't run off of a battery, and you know, didn't have, you know, all that, like the ability to.
What are they going for now?
Do all the things that it was doing at the time. Now, granted, MPC's more fleshed out with the JJOS and all that stuff, sequencing wise.
That shit's tight, dude.
Yeah, like, dude, XLR input with a preamp on it.
With a preamp.
Yeah.
That's fire. That's because think about like a lot of stuff today, you don't have the microphone input on it. And if you're dealing with the issues we're dealing with on Global Beat Cipher, where you want to run into your interface and still be able to talk without, you only have two inputs, where you're going to put your mic
SD card inputs on it.
Man.
You know, like, I mean, there was so much forward thinking on it. It's a shame that, you know, the business didn't go over well, because really if it had, and there was...
Here's what I can say I remember about it the most, which is unfortunate, because once I kind of stepped back and saw like there are some good, like on paper it read well. I've never bought one, but what I remember about it the most, around that time I was frequenting the MPC forums, and I don't know which one of the guys it was, but somebody from the company would get on there and get into huge arguments with every single body. And it was such a turnoff.
Bad promo.
It was tough for me to see the machine. You know what I mean?
It was, and that's really what that.
And I think that's the thing that I was speaking of when I say there was some downfalls, despite the valor in their effort. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the major issues, was the fact that, you know, one, they announced it really early, and they kind of had to in order to get like pre-sales
funding and stuff. Yeah,
but it was announced early. It was an independent company, so development time was long. You know, because they had one developer developing it, you know, doing the code, and it, you know, and then they had this angry street mentality to kind of get it out there, which was understable, but it went too far. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they got wrapped up in their
wilding, yo.
Bad PR.
Yo, they was wilding. I used to be like, what is up with them? And then
this shit's dope.
When I finally got a chance to interview one of the guys on Big Boy Tech Report, Revis, and I had newfound respect. And I mean, it kind of changed my mind quite a bit, and I gave support after that. But at that point, the steam had already been let out of the balloon for the product at that point. You know what I mean? It was kind of, maybe if they could have re-up and stayed together long enough to put out a V2 or another product and move forward, it probably would have been very promising. But I think that they did some damage. And I don't even think it was Revis, really. I can't remember who it was who's coming to MPC forums, but it was just...
Revis was always level-headed. Revis was mad cool.
He was the level-head dude of the group, but it feels like somebody, either the other guys or one of the other guys, they used to get on the forum wilding, and it was like unprecedented wilding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Revis, and we actually linked up with Revis this past NAMM, so he's
good to
still
see
in
him
the business
too.
and he's still doing his thing. So
with Icon.
With Icon Audio. So, but yeah, I mean, to me, like, I look at that product and I'm just like, man, that thing was so groundbreaking. At that time, there was nothing even close to being as ambitious as what they were doing, because like they knew what could be done, but companies just weren't doing it. Like, they didn't have the foresight to do it, and they were doing what Akai should have been doing.
Was it MPC Live before the MPC Live?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So that thing.
How were the pads as a finger drummer, or from a pad perspective? How'd the pads feel?
I didn't ever do deep finger drumming on it. I'll let Joe's in the chat. He can kind of answer that more. But as far as sensitivity on that thing, I didn't ever happen to have enough time to really get deep into it. I developed one of the like a sound bank for it, but it was dropping when they were pulling out. So. What
did they name your sound bank? I bet they gave
I
it
named
really bad.
No, it was my own.
Okay. I'm just saying probably sound banks were pretty bad.
It was a variation of the Dystopia pack that I did for Machine. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, that kind of stuff. But again, that all gets back to like, hardware and software, and like Shazam keeps mentioning MV8000 and MV8800 in the chat, and that's another one where it's like it was hardware, but it had the screen output and mouse so that you could work it like software also. That thing was super dope.
Yeah,
that was something I was really
Joe says the pads were super
to.
sensitive.
Okay,
so that's good.
The pads on what?
On the beat thing.
Okay,
that's tight. So you could still finger drum on it.
Yeah.
I just put everything on full level because I suck, but but I just but whatever, man.
I've been I'll tell you what, the only gripe that I'm having with finger drumming on the Force so far has been that depending on what I'm doing, I finger drum in a different way than a lot of people do. A lot of people use just their fingertips, but I use the side of my thumb. So I can accidentally trigger the wrong track, because the tracks are along the bottom here. So if my thumb hits it, move the mic out of the way. If my thumb hits down at the bottom, I could accidentally trigger a track.
So that's the reason why the push is cool, yeah?
Yeah, push is brilliantly laid out. I like push, but push doesn't have a touchscreen. That would be nice.
It will. Part 3 will.
No comments.
That'd be dope.
I'm not gonna comment on anything about that.
I'm just gonna say it for you. It will.
You know, Cam, when you say stuff like that,
no,
it's
everybody
actually a
says
comment.
that, and I'm like, no, I'm just not commenting. Like, you can't take what I'm saying and insinuate anything. I'm just saying. What do I know? I don't know anything. I've never seen a prototype of anything ever. I'll tell you what I do want to see as far as like sequencers and drum machines and dolls and all that kind of stuff. You got things like the Polyend tracker, which is pretty cool and small. You got things like 1010 Bitbox.
That shit's
black
dope.
box.
I've seen. There's a dude that always messes with that on Instagram that I follow. If that's what I'm thinking it is.
One thing that I really want to see is stuff like this. Like, I want to see somebody making gear where I can like plug it in. And what I mean by plug it in, like, so for instance, this is really great, compact. You can just throw it in your bag, whatever. You can power it from a USB battery pack, right, and be good to go. So USB battery pack. USB, it does USB hosting so that you can then send it to like a keyboard, whatever. It would be really awesome to have like something like this or Tracker or whatever it is, and just be able to like dock them into something. You know what I mean? Like dock it into something like this and be good to go, and be able to take like the CPU with you. You know what I mean? So that
That's
I have
that's
like
your next
like a
product idea
studio
you
version.
just gave to everybody.
What's that?
That's your product idea you just gave to everybody.
Oops.
Nah, man, I wouldn't develop that. It's gonna take years.
What about
Years
the,
and
what
way
about
more money.
the
I'm
Electron?
not
Which one from Electron?
The damn,
Octatrack?
maybe there was someone was showing me it last night.
What's that?
They were saying that like in combination with the 404, it helps you to arrange stuff because there's no sequencing on the 404 or whatever, right? And it was
It's probably a Digitac.
it was a Digitac. That's what it was.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying though. Like it's Steele says it's called an iPad.
It's called an iPad.
Yeah. If Apple ever stopped changing their connectors all the time, and just used, well, I guess now they got USB-C, so that's pretty standardized.
This is a dope sequencer.
That's what he was saying. He
Not to be slept on in
he
any
said
kind
that
of
with
way.
the 404. He said I got this to partner with the 404 to help me arrange stuff and sequence stuff.
I'd like to
Yep.
see how that all works together. As far as like how the workflow is as far as doing that. Like, can you record hitting the pads into the Digitac like that so that it's smooth and the workflow is nice? Because I have what is it called, the Rhythm MK2, and that thing, like, me and that thing fight like cats and dogs. I'm not a fan of like Electron's UI, like the way that they house menus and features inside their UI just makes me like want to throw something.
Is that after the whiskey or before?
Oh, that if it's
Before,
after the
after,
whiskey,
and during, to
burning
him,
the
I've
house
seen.
down. I'll burn the house down. It's man, I don't know. I'll put it to you this way, right? So, and I don't condone this, children, but one day I got really frustrated and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna smoke out, and I smoked out while messing with the Rhythm, just to put my mind in a completely different mind state with it, and that was when things started clicking a whole lot better, and I was just like, this thing works like somebody designed it while they were high. like this menu's over here and it does this. This menu's over here and it does almost the same damn thing, but it's way over here. Like it's just like somebody who's like high in a candy factory and they're just walking. Oh, this. It's like all over the place, man. So yeah,
Looks like a dope combo.
But the power is so intense on the Electron gear. Like what you can actually do with them is so powerful. It makes you put up with the annoyance.
Shouts to @works. It's @_WRKS on Instagram. He is the one who showed me that, and he and Daniel connected we were on the Zoom thing together, sound checking for the Global Beat Cypher. And he and Daniel started vibing. They're like, "Oh man, I can tell you're gonna be my homie or whatever." And then Daniel played us some shit. Oh, dude, yeah. No, and it's funny because after that, because I'm working on the push on my flip, and he's like, "No, I'm just doing it. I'm making beats. I'm chopping samples on my 404." But he said after listening to Daniel's stuff and seeing what you guys are doing, I'm gonna have to jump back on the push for my flip to work on my stuff. But I got the was it the Electron? Is that what it is? Digitac?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had that partnered with. I got that to partner with the 404, but I'm gonna have to jump back on Ableton in order to have more, kind of complex functionality and make the beat a little more complex.
So yeah, the interesting thing about that though, I mean, what I love about beat making and musicianship in general is the fact that we all can have the same stuff or even slightly different stuff and approach everything totally different.
Straight up.
And I love that, the diversity in that. You know what I mean? And I can appreciate all of it, whether it's, more grungy and raw or whether it's like more composed and polished. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. My stuff, even though my stuff is dirty and grungy, like after I saw Stolen Drums flips from the last Beat Cypher from last Saturday, And I thought about what he was doing, or I tried to think about what he was doing and analyze it with some homies, and like really like a lot of filtering. And I was talking with my boys about it. Shout out at Bendesla and Landos, because we were breaking it down, and I said, you know, his stuff is deceivingly simple, whereas it's very complex in terms of his process and the way he's filtering and flipping and microchopping. And so I deviated from what I normally do and try and like flipped stuff very differently and filtered stuff differently. And the other thing is I have a hard time adding more than the typical snare drum on the 2 and the 4. And his drum programming, he used the same drums for the 3 variations of the samples that he put over. So it's essentially 3 beats, but it was 1, right? But he had the
yeah.
And I never do that. And I thought, okay, it's time to change it up. Of course, I didn't do that. I focused on the filtering more. But I was like, maybe I need to add that in, because it's only 1 in 20 beats or 50 beats or whatever that I'll add another snare drum on the end of the 2 or the end of the 4. Have a tat like, and he's doing it freely. And I wouldn't think to do that. I'm kind of stuck in my box of like, you know, traditional boom bap, or, you know, the little maybe trap hi-hats or whatever, but repeating the snare like that's, and you could hear, and it made sense in terms of the groove. So that was interesting. And so, of course, I didn't add those extra snares on there, but I did do the filtering. I was influenced by his filtering of the flips he did for the Global Beat Cypher last week, and that's beautiful. And then seeing Daniel extract the drums and take little micro samples, and then start, you know, not obsessing with the sample, but taking parts that he heard and textures that he heard and transforming and building the melody and the harmony off of that was crazy. I thought, oh man, I've been doing it all wrong.
Yeah. See that, and that's when, to me, that's like the art of sampling, when you get down in it like that. You know what I mean? For me too, though, using the MPC has always pushed my mind in that direction. You know what I mean? It's just because
the
of the
transients and the tails.
Yeah, because of the way you work with the programs and the with those 16 pads, and you work with the programs and being able to micro chop and even duplicate the programs and filter them differently and layer.
I just want to get your definition on this, because shout out MicroChop and shout out Gino Sorcerelli. But I posed the question: what is microchopping? Does it have to be an 8th note? Does it have to be a 16th note? When is it microchopping versus?
I think it depends on the sample for me.
Yeah, I think it depends on the sample, because here's the thing. I think when I think microchopping, I'm thinking
8th note.
It's not necessarily the notes, though, the bits of like the actual notes. I'm thinking bits and pieces that don't necessarily equal like what you would typically sample. True. Or something that's recognizable.
It's not on the one.
You know what I mean? It's not on the one. It's not necessarily grabbing a thing out of it. It's about grabbing these little bitty pieces, these granular pieces, and they could be bigger or smaller depending on what it is, but it may not be the actual instruments out of it. You know what I mean? But it could be. But it may not be. May not be complete phrases of the actual instrument. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the things about that is like, so if somebody says micro chopping to me and it's an 8th or a 16th, I'm like, no, because to me that's just chopping. Like that's the whole point of chopping. Damn. So like micro chopping to me, more often than not is so let's just, for instance, take like a vocal sample, right? If there's a vocal sample, I'm taking just syllables, or I'm taking like just half syllables and that sort of thing. It's not actual, like it's not a whole word. I'm not chopping out a word. I'm not chopping out like a phrase. I'm chopping out parts of a syllable. You know who was?
That's it. That's kind of what I was trying to get to.
People that I can really remember that blew my mind with the way he does micro chopping is Prefuse 73. If you listen to the way that he would chop vocal samples. He was doing things with the way he was flipping syllables, right? And just rearranging just the syllables of vocal pieces, and that stuff was really intricate and interesting. But like a simple like, oh, where am I at? Let me go to like a so.
And Fortet too. No, Fortet was doing crazy stuff. Ooh, that's the sample. Yep, that's Gagoosh.
Like that. Can you hear that?
Yes.
So that's like, to me, that's just a regular chop.
Shoot.
Right? And even if you play it quicker.
What if you put the repeat on 16th or 32nd? Does it become a micro chop? If you put the repeat feature on and it at a 16th note repeat or 32nd note, does your quarter note chop then become a micro sample? A Micro
Well, see,
chop?
that's the thing to me is it's not even so much about like the divisional aspects of it. It's more about like taking things that are off of
Portions,
yeah,
right?
like taking things that are off of like what sounds like a musical whole note or something, or
I
even a
think I
musical
think I
16th
think
note.
Kim, what you were saying about the phrase, word, syllable, I think if you transform that to a sample and you have a longer thing that's a phrase, maybe instruments that you could grab, or a couple notes that you could grab, or divisions of the grid that you can grab, maybe your words. But when you get deeper than that, you're talking about syllables, and you know what I mean?
Well,
Like
yeah, well,
those.
Steele in
totally.
his comment, Steele's nailing exactly what I'm saying. Like, it's not about timing of it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not about chopping to a grid. It's about chopping less than that. It's about chopping to tone, really. Like just these
Chop the tail,
and in a
not
way,
the
like
transient.
so in synthesis, you have granular synthesis. I kind of look at it extremely similar to that. Like you're just getting like small tones, and then playing with those pieces. So to me, like a micro chop is just not. It's not something that I'm putting to a grid like that. It's something that I'm more like just.
So wasn't Dilla doing that with his? Was it a 3000? Right, like back in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think so.
that was a precedent. I mean, I don't know if we can like Marley Marl was chopping the drums first. I don't know how much did he do micro chopping, or was that's like a generation or two after?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit later on after that.
Yeah.
Because really you could talk about
Premiere was micro chopping, right? Like he would take those weird ambient noises,
Who?
like like right?
Who are you talking about?
DJ
Primo.
Premier.
Oh yeah. Well, I would kind of argue, yeah, like Premier had definitely did some things like that because he was really the master at taking things from different places and kind of
The ambient noises, bro. I was putting my
Textures and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was putting my homegirl up on game last night. I played her what's the Nas track? Nas is like with the fucking birds at the beginning.
Yeah.
The fucking birds and the and the
Be
ambient
careful,
noise.
you're gonna get Steel really upset if you start talking about any Nas tracks and any beats. And
And it's okay. Still it's only hearing words typed.
Steel's about to micro chop this conversation.
Oh, so ghetto, which by the way he better play tonight. I think that's one of his top 5 beats ever. So ghetto, like is that micro chopping, or is that just chopping transients and that's what it is? Like the obvious.
To me, it just comes down to it's not so much just chopping transients and doing it in that way. To me, it is more like
Boom.
It's just that element of tonal chopping in a way.
And boom with the clock noise. I mean, and
and I'll be honest with you, I don't even I don't think about any of this stuff when I'm making beats. Like,
No, it just work.
yeah, like to me, this is all that stuff where we get back to like, oh, can you teach it or do you hear it? Like,
so you're in a flow state permanently, like Daniel Steele. Like I'm not because I overthink.
You just gotta
stuff.
like. To me,
Yeah,
it's all about listening to-
I just do what it needs.
I'm
I mean?
in between, bro. Like I can't like sometimes I'm flow state, but sometimes I'm intentionally thinking about it, and that's even to deviate from what I would normally do. Because I was telling Fresh Kills this, because Kills and I talk about like the chop pattern, and I always do the like A B pattern or the like, you know what I mean? Like I get stuck in the same goddamn quarter note or eighth note chop pattern, and I can't escape it unless I use the repeat feature. Or that's when the filtering maybe comes in, or that's when I don't know. Like my homeboy Poetic,
Yeah, go ahead.
who's telling, he's like, "Yo, I found a new way of chopping. Instead of following the drums or hitting on the 1, 2, 3, or 4, on certain tracks, soul funk tracks, follow the bass line and make your chops there as if that were the 1, 2, 3, or 4." Now
I did that on the sample flip. I had to.
Yeah.
There's a couple of tracks in there that are really dope, but if you listen to the vocals don't follow the same cadence as the drums, and they follow the bass line instead.
Which is semi-syncopated.
Yeah.
Ken, play that sample again. I want to hear what you did with the gagoosh on the fourth.
Oh, this one's a little bit more straightforward, but it's
quarter note chops. Oh, you did eighth note chops.
and then what I also did with that, let me see if I can do this is. So I have like that higher part, right? But here's where it gets Hold on. I don't know. Is that just going through the mic?
I don't know, but it sounds fire.
Here, I'll do it like this. So.
Oh Lord.
So you could chop it up in different rhythms and not follow the chop rhythm, right?
Yep.
But then I flip them backwards, right? So you can do. So these are all backwards over
And
here.
you hear the acoustic
when
bass
you're doing
there
it,
too, huh?
Yeah, so when you're doing it, you could be like.
I want the drums to have a double clap, like a clap clap.
So that way you can kind of flip
Blap, blap,
just a few pieces out, and then it would be like.
Yeah, Ken. Yeah.
Right?
He put the new
then you
gas
flip it.
hi-hats on it.
Right?
You have to sing on it to meet BeatPPL. Yeah.
Ken, don't ask Ken to sing on. He's just gonna sing about chicken wings.
That's
Was that
fine.
sing? No singing ever.
You just auto-tune, bro.
No, definitely not. I am the biggest anti-auto-tune guy out there. Like I feel like the auto-tune was designed to destroy black culture. That's my conspiracy theory. You guys want to talk about 5G and COVID and all that? I feel like auto-tune was designed to destroy musicality and soul.
Dude,
Well, there you
use
go.
the vocoder. Use the talk box, bro. Use the talk box, Ken.
I'm not Zap.
Get some Roger Troutman on that shit.
I am not Zap. Yeah, it's all to me though. Like so hold on. How about this? Let's flip it up for a second and just let me ask you guys.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite all-time? If you had to pick like one beat and say this is like one of my favorite chop sample
Above the
flipped
Clouds.
beats.
Above the
Clouds. That's a great
Above
one.
The clouds. Good choice.
I'm
the
gonna
best
pull
beat
up
ever.
mine. I'm gonna pull up mine, and I'm only gonna play a snippet of it. Just because it's God, it's.
So I gotta say,
so ghetto.
it's one of, I can't remember the name. It's unfortunate. It's actually a Dilla produced Bilal song because of the story that I heard of how he put it together. Blew my mind. How he put and the bass line doom 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 doom, and then it just kind of trails off. He used 4 different records to compose that bass line. The bass line alone. You know what I mean?
Wait, he did what now?
Dilla used 4 different records just to sample bass line
ill.
samples from
That's
4
ill.
different records, little pieces that he pieced together to create this bass line.
He comped the bass line.
Yeah,
He comped the
basically
bass line. Yeah.
from different pieces, and it was like a couple notes from this one, doom doom doom. Then I mean that was like a regular bass, and then he went and grabbed a jazz upright bass, doom doom doom, and it's so cohesive, but it's like soulful. It's crazy, and I remember them telling the story about how he was kind of going around the room and knew exactly which records and which small phrases to grab to make this bass line. And it was like and it's a cold track when you hear it.
Yo, can I play you this real quick?
Play it.
This is, I feel like this instrumental is criminally slept on, and I just like, man, I tell you what, this thing blows my mind. I'm gonna play just the instrumental first, all right? So, see if you can pump this up for a minute. Hold on.
Yes.
Yo, listen to the chops in this thing, man. So, so you get the whole playthrough right there, and it sounds chill. But man, when he gets into the chops on this, it is pure brilliance.
It's hella technical, huh? I just thought it was a loop. I thought it was a loop.
Like this thing, oh my god, this is one of my favorite beats, period.
Of all time ever.
It sounds like it's all just a straight.
Yeah, I thought it was a loop, bro. I always assumed that was a loop.
That shit. Yo, this.
So is High Tech probably one of the more slept on producers ever?
Yeah.
I
Quite frankly,
like
without a doubt.
man, Oh God, he doesn't get enough respect. I'm sorry. Like
He
He
did
doesn't.
some shit. He did some
So
shit one time. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, there was I don't know what the occasion was, but there was some mixtape released of all high tech beats and productions, and there was a mixtape, and then they had fresh verses from Talib on it and different things. Yo, that was one of the illest mixtapes of all time, and it opened my eyes to how dope he is, even though I was already a fan. Like, it made me step back and be like, yo, he ain't just good, he's like one of the greatest.
So he should battle Premier pretty much.
He could.
Yeah,
He could.
straight up.
Yeah, he certainly could.
How about him versus Pete Rock? Is that unfair in terms of generation or like status? You think High Tech versus Pete Rock?
Dude,
I think that
is
can
it
work.
wrong that like I really hate like as
Beat battles,
hip hop
beat
as it is, I hate like versus stuff. Like it just, and as somebody who came up beat battling, I can't ever pick like when you're like, yo, who's your favorite MC? I can't do it.
I can't
I'm
do
like,
it either,
I'm like,
but
well, I can break down like 15 different reasons why Cool G Rap should be the greatest ever, and then I
Yes,
can break
he's
down
still
15 reasons why
Restoration
Common
mixtape.
should be the greatest ever, and then I can break down 15 like so I could I just
Big Daddy
love it
Kane is
all.
the best ever.
Who?
Big Daddy Kane.
Oh, I'll give it to Cool G over Big Daddy all
Big
day.
Big Daddy Kane.
Dude, Cool G is a monster. And
He is.
His
And
kids.
they come from the same. They come from the same school too. But like, dude, Big Daddy Kane. Oh,
Yo, honestly,
I don't know, man. I've always
honestly,
been a
and from that
KRS
same
One
school,
fan,
like,
and
I
that's
told the
tough
story before
for me.
about what locked me in and made me like absolutely like locked in hip hop fan for life was I was already like way deep into listening to hip hop back in the day, but this I had to have been like 7 or 8, and we were trading tapes, and this kid came to me. No, I was probably like 8 or 9, but anyway, this kid came to me, and I think it was like Moni Love or something like that, right? And I was so excited to get this tape, like I was so hype about it, and he came up to me with 3 tapes to trade me, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. So I made the trade, and then I got home feeling like I had bought Magic Beans. Like I was like, man, he got my tape, and that's that, right? But the 3 tapes was too short. Big Daddy, it was too short. Life is too short. Big Daddy Kane, I forget the Big Daddy Kane one. It was the one where he's like in the black trench coat. You know what I'm talking about? And then the other one was BDP, By Any Means Necessary.
blew my mind, bro.
Yo,
ooh.
that BDP tape
Molly
changed my life.
Yo.
Like when I heard My
Really?
Philosophy, it was over. Like I was done. Like
Yeah,
that
I
was
remember
it.
playing that tape, and my brother was around, and he's 14 years older than me. And I remember playing that tape, and he was around, and he was listening. He turned around, he looked.
So what the fuck is that?
Yeah, he was like, "Yo, whoever that is, he really rapping it." You know what I'm saying? It was like insanity for that.
CC Funk-
When you kind of
yeah.
think of that time period, KRS-One was so far ahead.
So far ahead. Yeah.
So far, and it's almost like criminally slept on. That man was rapping 10, 15 years ahead of the curve.
Was Rakim not? Rakim wasn't?
Rakim
was.
I didn't find out about Rakim until probably like 3 years later or something like that. But Rakim blew my mind too in a whole other level. Like there's Rakim and After. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's it.
period. Like for MCs, there's Rakim and After, and also Ultramagnetic was like.
I was gonna say CC Funk is on point with the Ultramagnetic comment.
So Ultramagnetic to me was that was the difference for me because I grew up in like kind of a punk rock household. So like I grew up super anti-radio. Like anything that's on the radio, MTV, whatever it is, like if it's popular, chances are I didn't grow up liking it. Like I didn't become okay with the masses liking anything until I was later. I was that dude.
Yeah,
So-
I feel you. Me too.
So yo, to me, Ultramagnetic and Kool Keith in particular is the birth of underground hip hop, period. Like if you go back and listen to, the rhymes are pathetic. They think they're copacetic, using nursery terms at least. You know what I mean? Like when he was going at Run DMC on that, like it was literally the birth of the underground right there. Like
That's tight.
Yo, I want to interrupt just to say this comment that I got up here is just because I wanted people to know what the name of the song is I was talking about by Dilla that he produced. This is it. That song. You get a chance to check out Reminisce It's Bilal featuring Mos Def and Common. Listen to that bass line. There's no way if you don't know the story behind it that you would ever guess the story behind it.
Do you think is that a nod to Troy? You think?
To Troy?
Yeah, reminisce like they reminisce over here. You think that's a nod? To it?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. The song is really about them talking about lost loves, ex-loves, relationships.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Kind of one of those things.
But yeah, what I was getting at though with that is that so for me like the underground, it was started with Ultramagnetic, and then when he dropped, like I started getting into like De La Soul and Stetsasonic before that, but like De La Soul, anything Prince Paul is
Prince
golden.
Paul,
Like
all day.
anything Prince Paul is golden to me. And when I first heard Dr. Octagon,
it
was mind altering. Man, listen. Here's the
Automator,
thing.
bro.
Here's the thing. It was a problem because I had been given Octagon. I had started working at this record store, and I was like the hip hop guy for the record store. And I had dropped the 5 strip, and I put Octagon on and walked about 5 miles from my house to the job.
Boy.
And that album just like altered my whole brain state for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And years later, I was fortunate enough to get to meet Automator, and I've met Kool Keith a few times too, and Qbert actually. But like I met
One of the best
Automator.
scratches ever.
I met Automator at a show, at a Deltron show, and I just kind of went. I just wanted to go up to him and thank him, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Like I really do not get awestruck over very many people at all. And I've met a lot of really amazing people, but Automator, Kool Keith, like those are guys that fundamentally changed my thinking as a youth. So when I met him and I was giving him dap, he was like, "Oh, Flux, oh yeah, I got your sound packs," like, and I just like melted. I was like, "Oh."
Dude, I saw Automator and Mike Patton from Faith No More, who were 2 of my childhood heroes, in a bar in San Francisco in the Mission. And I went up to both of them at the bar and I said, "Gentlemen, I'm sorry to bother you. I know you're probably just trying to chill, but both of you changed my life for the better musically." And just, like Faith No More, like Angel Dust, that album on constant repeat. And then Automator shit, Handsome Boy Modeling School changed my life.
Handsome Boy Modeling School is so good.
That
man.
taught me
like
about
there's a lot of that
McDermott.
work. But the point about those guys, the reason why I bring those guys up is because they were doing hip hop that wasn't scared to be themselves.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and it was the same with De La, right? Because it was like, for me, the thing about
That's right, De La did too, yeah.
my philosophy that really got me excited was, you listen to the beginning of it, like, and he's talking, he's like, "So you're a philosopher? I think very deeply." And like that kind of stuff always spoke to me because I was always nerdy little kid, so like it was all the cerebral stuff that always connected with me. So then when I saw people who were willing to do hip hop in a creative way, that weren't scared to break away from the norm, because during these periods, a lot of it was like you were starting to see that biting was less a bad thing and more the accepted norm, right? And you were starting to see like, Yo MTV Raps was kind of like falling away, and now it was becoming like, okay,
Mr.
everybody
Bungle.
wants to regurgitate what's making them big, right? And that stuff really just affected me. Like, it got me really upset because it was the exact opposite of what I loved about hip hop. So then when I would see like these really off the wall characters like doing comedy sketches in their verses and whatnot, like, with De La's sketches, I think they were the first people to really do sketches.
I think so. If not, they definitely popularized them, but I don't recall hearing a lot of that.
De La Soul is Dead or the first joint?
The first joint, 3 feet.
Yeah. They
Prince Paul,
so
man.
like that stuff to me was like, that was the holy shit. Like, these guys are being creative, and they're not scared to be creative, and that's what spoke to me the most, like grabbing that kind of stuff.
That's what's up.
Yeah. And hey, can I give a shout to a producer that most people never heard of, that to me is like a post Prince Paul, like brilliant use of samples and shit that most people
Who's
don't
that?
think of. A guy named Verse Murphy from Sacred Hoop. He's from Arizona originally, but Bay Area group, and they had DJ Quest doing cuts on their shit. They had, like some of the best turntablists in the world, but the beats were crazy. Like, I heard that shit and I was like, what the fuck did he sample for this? And like, it's just like samples you would, it kind of on the Prince Paul tip that you wouldn't like. It's not like just the hard shit, although they have the hard shit. And I heard the intro track on everyone's got to check this out. It's called Retired, the Retired EP by Sacred Hoop. I think it was made on an ASR, and it starts with this fucking this conga loop or something like that, and then you hear these ambient jungle noises laid over it, and then this deep droning bass, and then he fucking pitches down the beginning of Run Around Sue, right? Here's my story, it's sad but true, and you have like 3 or 4 layers going on. To me, that changed everything. And then he would also do these fucking change up. He'd be a multi-part beat, so it'd be like 3 or 4 change ups in a hip hop track. Yeah, and that shit was ill. Like Not My House, which was on the Q's Hip Hop Shop Volume 2, featuring Z-Man. It goes into an entire different like change up, and the scenario changes. It's like a movie cutting to another scene. To me, I was like, oh, you can do that. You can have change ups and it can still work, and you can make your beats even more dynamic and have it be multi-part and complex. And then and obviously, Premier was sampling ambient noises, so that influenced him. But then I thought, oh, you can sample like a golf ball, spinning around in a hole and use that. And that's a very Premier thing to do, like every, on the 3rd bar of a 4-bar loop or on whatever.
Just so you know, like I remember the whole water droplets thing. That was like the biggest fake rumor. like it wasn't true.
I don't never heard what it really was anyway.
It's from a record. I can't remember the name of the record, but it wasn't true. Like people were thought that it was actual water droplets or whatever, but it's from a record. I forget the name of it.
Or Insane in the Membrane with the horse going.
Yo, seriously, Muggs is a god. Like that dude is a god, and he's so forward thinking. Like he's another one that that I was fortunate enough to meet and usually I geek out more on the people who create the gear that we all use than the actual people who make it, because a lot of the people who make it, I'm just like, I can do what you do. But it's like the geniuses who are like coding up sequencers. I'm like, yeah, I can't do what you can do. But you get somebody like Muggs, that
put
guy.
Put the fucking horse on that shit. That gives it. That's like jump around. Is it the bagpipe noise or whatever? That weird noise.
Yeah.
Yo, let me just drop this real quick. I just want to give a for instance, because we were talking about the MicroChopping. This is what I was talking about. So like this stuff right here.
This is Refuse.
This was done on a 2000 XL. Now, if you get into here, I had it queued up, but I didn't realize it was still playing. So.
What is that? On that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's done on a 2000 XL, and that was done back in 2003.
Yeah.
So it's like you hear. Like, that does not sound like 2000 XL programming.
No, it doesn't.
Yo, so we've been with just about close to hour 20. So before we go, I want to just say this. Today at 4 p.m. Pacific, this thing is going to be premiering on the B-Boy Tech Report channel. Last year, 2019, at the Synthplex in Burbank, California, a few of us got together and we did this whole talk about mod bap and the discussion of mod bap and, kind of our philosophies and how we do it, influences, and just the crew and the movement. So this is like a 45-minute, 50-minute conversation. On the panel is myself, Aaron from Afro Rack, and Shiro, Voltage Controller. And we're talking about incorporating modular synthesis into hip hop and the whole sort of movement that is mod bap. So we premiering today at 4 o'clock on the YouTube channel, B-Boy Tech Report YouTube channel. So check us out there, and I'll be in the comments.
Sick.
Word.
Y'all should jump on, and people should jump on the Global Beat Cypher feed tonight. That's just going to be stupid.
Yo, so hold on. Can you clarify real quick? So can anybody join in, or like what's
anybody
the deal?
can join in, but like, look, we hit 5 hours with the sample flips last week. But yeah, look,
5 hours.
We went 5 hours and like 40 minutes, bro. Because look, we played
That's 6 hours.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, right.
Look, I don't give a fuck. As long as
That's not a. That's
He's
not
like,
a-
look, we're still going from last week.
Yeah.
and the beat tape, man. When I get Stolen Drums beats for the beat tape from last week, it's already fire, but I can't wait to get those because that shit kind of fucked my head up. But yeah, so yes, hit us up. But you got to flip the samples. You got to get in the sound check. We're doing initial sound check, West Coast at 4:30, and then Mike Mulder from Creative Minds, who's helping to stream it and do all that. I have to jump off because I'm doing a 20-minute set on Kaizen Club now. Shout out them and check out their YouTube, the dope beat making platform. They've been on the show for the past couple weeks.
Dope.
At Kaizen Club now on Instagram. And then I'm doing a quick set, and then I'm coming back. Oh, you got the stickers. You got the stickers.
Man, I got them stickers, man.
That's all. There's only 60 of those in the world. Like those. That's it.
Yeah, I think I have not added a sticker to my 2000 XL since like probably 07, and I think one of these is definitely going on that. So
it's going to be meta.
That's a special place.
It's going to be meta. Yeah, if people want to cop those limited edition stickers, go to todaysfuturesound.bigcartel.com, and it supports our nonprofit. We teach kids beat making as a mental health and educational intervention. We're doing it in juvenile hall. We're doing it in community settings. We're doing it with refugees, like kids who have been forced out of their place of residence and where they live around the globe, and here in Oakland, California, in the Bay Area. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the therapeutic beat making article that we put out in the academic journal 2 weeks ago. Shout out to Dr. Raphael Travis, Healing Power of Hip Hop. He's going to be on the show next week. We got Laura Escade. She's going to be on the show next week. Boom Baptist, he's going to be on the show on the 25th. He's just dropping his project, the whole like NBA Jam tribute. But it's going to be 7 p.m. PST, 10 p.m. EST. We're going to be watching the end of RZA versus Premier and doing a Mystery Science Theater 3000 on it and just talking hella shit on it with hella producers. And then we're going to transition into the Beat Cypher, and everyone's going to play their flips. We're going to feature beat people. All you guys doing your thing is going to be crazy. I can't wait to see DSTL play all his crazy flips. He made an EP out of all the fucking samples. I know. And that Kagoosh sample that you're chopping up that's my shit.
Yeah, like, again, I'm doing my sample flips with the Force, which I've had for less than a week now, and I've really only had about 4 days on. So I'm using this opportunity to learn the shit out of the Force. So it's going to be, like, literally what you hear is going to be my very first ever beats done on the Force.
Can I play you guys real quick? Just this is very left field for me. This is the flip that I was working on till hella late last night, where Stolen Drums, filtering, and talking to the homies really influenced me. I don't know if can you hear this? Oh yeah, here we go.
He was a quiet man, a craftsman.
Yeah.
Very conscious of his surroundings. A landscape artist at that time. He taught me to observe nature.
Yeah.
Nothing elaborate, just the hedges, the trees, the grass. To notice the sky. He was also very conscious of good work. I remember him when he was saying,
Yeah.
keep your eye on what you do. When you're sawing a piece of wood, move, listen to it, move to the saw. Watch the hammer, the nails. And these two lessons are 100% giving attention.
Hey, yo, the snare on that, is it a double snare or is it just that?
I did put a double snare. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And that's the first sample that everyone flipped. So I figured I had to do it very differently. Shout out Beat Butcher, the drums, all Beat Butcher.
Word.
Dope.
And that's way sloppier drums than I usually do. That's like way more slumpy.
Yeah, I love the groove on that, man.
But then it changes. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm way big into like massive change ups on my beats too.
It's all about change ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes when it turns around, it just makes the ugly face even uglier.
Okay. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I like kind of hitting people with something that they don't expect, but not jarring them so much that they don't keep the bop. You know what I mean? You got to keep that bop, but you got to make them be like, oh, I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got the SP1200 little Ableton emulator plug-in and just fucked with like the ring modulation and all that shit. Yeah, so hey, thank you for letting me fucking bogart, and I'll just play you the
drum
end
group
part.
was it that you did the that you did the patterns in? Was that the first?
The first one, the drum
It
group.
was the first one, but check it out. This is the first one too. This is the end, right? This is all the first one. It's all the first sample, which is it's a high res, sample. And I figured I had to like, even though I was doing my played out little sample chop pattern that I always do, I figured if I could filter it and try to think about like what, I don't know what the fuck drums did because his shit's crazy, but I talked about it with the homies and you put, some filter on it and then you put like some delay and reverb and have all those, ambient noises or the sound floating around and then try to make the drums real kind of sloppy and Dilla whatever-esque. So yeah, and then I added all the I was using Trillion for that crazy bass for the ARP Odyssey or the ARP 2600 or whatever it is, and then I also was using Keyscape for the keys. It was like tiny keyboard,
dope.
And everything's hella wet. I put hella reverb and delay on everything and the sample chops to make it ring out. Even when you cut down the filter cutoff to still have it floating around and have the.
That's what I like to do. That's like, to me, that feels like when I first started using, like that idea of that is when I first started using my MPC 2000 XL. Like you chop the samples and they are blunt, but then to add a little reverb or a little delay so that they just kind of ring out a little bit. That's that hot right there, man.
Yeah, so that's my flip. But as soon as I woke up and I saw Daniel just going to work on the samples and I was like, oh, okay. I thought I flipped it all right, and then no. So hey, shout outs to Daniel for doing that and for you guys doing it. I'm excited to hear your flips. I'm excited to put that on the beat tape for folks. People should tune in on the Today's Future Sound Facebook. It's me streaming live on Facebook. You can comment on there on youtube.com/Today's Future Sound. And we're feeding it to our Instagram channel too, at Today's Future Sound. All you guys are going to be on it. I'm really hyped now that I saw Daniel doing that. And then I got the little screen capture on his beat making process this morning with my iPhone. So I'm going to post that on the IGTV so people can see that magic unfolding. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's dope.
Yeah, it's gonna be dope.
Cool, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll see y'all guys again later on this evening. And all y'all people out there that's watching, be sure to tune back into the B-Boy Tech Report channel to check out the ModBap discussion panel premiere.
4 p.m., right?
Yeah,
PST?
4 p.m.
Hey, we gotta sound check you. So at like 7:30 your time, try somewhere in between there and try to jump in and so we can get the direct, because that's why Zoom is ill, because you can do the direct audio from your computer. We did that with you last night, Corey.
Yep, exactly. Well, cool, man. I'm just gonna play this out and we out of here.
Shout out to arresting officer.
Yeah. New York, Oakland,
Delaware, stand up.
Delaware, 305.
302. 302.
Oh, okay. It's 305. That's probably Mexico.
302 is the off-brand Delaware.
Oh. That's Rhode Island?
Yo, maybe. Shout out to Akai, who's based in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Word. All right, peace, y'all.
Peace.